Hey everyone, and welcome back. When it comes to air travel, there's this thing that's always on everyone's mind: safety.
Right, of course.
So today we're going deep. We're diving into whether or not physics can actually give us 100% safe air travel, like zero fatalities.
Like zero, wow.
Yeah, that's the question. And we've got some expert discussions to help us unpack this.
I love it.
So, okay, right away, our sources are saying that physics does have its limits.
Right.
I mean, you're talking forces of nature, these complex systems, the unpredictable human factor.
Totally.
To eliminate every single risk,
Yeah.
that's probably not going to happen. It's a pipe dream.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pipe dream. But shooting for near zero risk, that forces us to think outside the box.
Right.
To leverage physics in these brand new, innovative ways.
Exactly. Like turbulence, for instance. I'm sure you've flown a time or two and hit some rough air.
Oh, yeah.
And let's be honest, it can be pretty unnerving. So what if we could just make that a thing of the past?
Well, we might be able to. We've already got sensors and AI algorithms. And, they can already predict turbulence and adjust flight paths.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine if we had a system that went even further, integrating all that real-time data with autopilot systems.
So the plane would just self-correct in midair.
Exactly.
Giving us all a smooth ride. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
But what about those AI decisions, though?
Yeah.
I mean, how can we be sure that the AI is always going to choose the safest option, especially in those split-second scenarios?
Well, that's where the rigorous testing comes in and the fail-safes. It's about building multiple layers of redundancy and making sure that the AI is trained on just mountains and mountains of data to handle any situation. Yeah. But of course, we would still need human oversight in developing and implementing such a system.
That makes sense. But what about the big one? What about engine failure? I mean, what if both engines just quit?
Ooh.
Is there anything physics can do to help us out of that?
Yeah, that's the thing that keeps people up at night.
It is.
Well, redundancy is going to be key. Most commercial aircrafts already have multiple engines, and they can fly on one if needed.
Right.
But our sources are actually proposing some really interesting concepts to take it even further. Like, what if we added electric or hybrid engines as backups?
Oh, so even if the primary engines fail, there's a secondary system ready to go.
Exactly.
It's pretty reassuring.
Yeah. And our sources go even further, talking about some more radical ideas. Like, imagine glider-like designs that allow a plane to glide for much longer distances.
I read about this.
Yeah.
They were even talking about emergency rocket boosters, like right out of a movie, like sci-fi. Are we seriously suggesting strapping rockets onto these airliners?
It does sound far-fetched, but in a worst-case scenario, that extra thrust can be the difference between disaster and a controlled emergency landing.
Right.
Of course, it would require tons of testing and a ton of safety protocols. But that's the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that we need when we're approaching near zero risk.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. Okay, but let's shift gears a little bit and talk about takeoff and landing. Statistically, isn't that where a lot of the accidents happen?
Yeah, that's correct. Takeoff and landing, they're complex maneuvers.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a much higher degree of human involvement.
Oh.
So that's where automation could play a crucial role. Automation powered by physics-based algorithms.
So we're talking AI-controlled landings,
Yeah.
like taking the pressure off the human pilots.
Exactly. AI can react much faster and with way more precision, especially in those high-pressure situations. And we've also got things like EMAs that are already in place.
EMAs, remind me what that is.
EMAs stands for Engineered Materials Arrestor Systems. It's basically a specially designed area at the end of runways that can safely stop an aircraft if it overshoots the runway.
Okay.
Think of it like a safety net, just in case something goes wrong.
Interesting. So it seems like we're starting to build a pretty good picture here for safety measures, but what about the plane itself? The structural integrity? There have been very rarely, but those terrifying incidents of mid-air structural failures. Could physics help prevent that?
Absolutely. And that's where materials science comes in. We're on the brink of some huge advancements in this field. Imagine materials like carbon nanotubes. They're incredibly strong, lightweight, advanced composites that can make planes even stronger and even lighter than ever before.
So lighter and stronger. Got it. But I also remember reading about something called self-healing materials. Is that for real?
It might sound futuristic, but it's a real area of research.
Wow.
These materials can actually repair tiny cracks and damage before they become major problems. It's like the plane has its own immune system, constantly monitoring and maintaining its structural integrity.
So we're talking about materials that can fix themselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. It seems like we're really pushing the boundaries of what's possible when we're talking about aircraft design.
We are. And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about passenger protection, in those rare worst-case scenarios.
Right, because everyone always wonders what would happen, in a catastrophic event. I know I do. And our sources had some pretty wild ideas about those.
Yeah. Well, one of the most interesting concepts is the modular cabin. Imagine, if you will, a passenger section that can detach from the aircraft in an emergency
What?
and safely descend using parachutes.
You're talking about the whole cabin just gently floating down. That sounds like a movie.
It does sound like a movie. It's definitely a bold concept, and there are some engineering challenges to overcome, but it shows that we're exploring every possible avenue to ensure passenger survival.
It gets even more sci-fi. They also mentioned protective gel layers inside the cabin.
Yes.
To absorb impact forces during a crash.
Exactly, like a high-tech airbag system.
Right.
Designed to cushion passengers on impact. Again, this is pushing the boundaries of current technology, but the idea is to use physics to mitigate the forces that cause injuries.
So it's not just about preventing accidents, but about creating multiple layers of protection.
Right.
To increase the chances of survival no matter what.
Exactly.
This is amazing. This is a whole new way of thinking about aviation safety.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is a paradigm shift. Moving away from reacting to incidents and embracing this proactive, physics-driven approach to safety.
This deep dive is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about air travel. It seems like we're getting closer and closer to these incredibly safe skies, but it requires some serious out-of-the-box thinking.
Absolutely. It really does. And it's going to require physicists, engineers, material scientists, all working together, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's amazing to think about the potential impact this could have, not just on aviation, but on society as a whole.
Oh, totally. Just imagine a world where the risk of flying is basically non-existent. How would that change how we view travel?
Right.
Would we be more willing to hop on a plane for a long-haul flight, knowing that it's as safe as walking down the street?
It's mind-boggling. I mean, some people might just embrace air travel completely, finally freed from those fears.
Right.
While others, maybe those with past experiences or just a general unease with heights, might still find it a challenge. It highlights how complex human perception is.
Totally.
Because even with all the evidence of safety, our own experiences and anxieties, they still influence how we feel.
Yeah, you've hit on a really crucial point there. As we move closer to near zero risk, it's not enough to just develop the technology.
Right.
We also have to communicate those advancements, build trust and address any concerns that passengers might have.
So transparency is key, making sure people understand these technologies and how they actually work.
Exactly. It's about fostering this culture of open dialogue, around aviation safety, where passengers feel informed and empowered and confident in the systems designed to protect them. We need to bridge that gap between the advancements in physics and engineering and that human need to feel safe and in control.
Right, because knowledge is power, as they say. And speaking of power, what about the economic side of all of this? I mean, developing and implementing these advanced safety features can't be cheap.
Yeah, that's true. There are going to be costs involved. And that brings up some important questions. Who pays for those costs?
Yeah.
Is it the airlines, the passengers, the government? And how do we make sure that these advancements are good for everyone, not just the people who can afford to fly on the safest, most technologically advanced aircraft?
That's a really good point. We wouldn't want to create like a two-tiered system where only the wealthy have access to the safest flights.
Exactly.
Accessibility for everyone should be the top priority.
For sure. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Huh.
But it's something we need to discuss as we head toward this potential future of ultra-safe air travel. And even with all of these advancements, we need to remember that the human element will always be a factor.
Right.
We can design the safest planes, but we can't eliminate human error, whether it's from pilots or maintenance crews or even passengers.
So vigilance and a strong safety culture, they're still important even in a world of near zero risk.
Absolutely. Technology can enhance safety, but human responsibility will ultimately determine how safe our skies actually are.
It's a good reminder that even as we push the limits of technology, the human factor is at the heart of it all.
It is. And that brings us to another interesting point in all of this: the psychological impact of achieving near zero risk in air travel.
Oh, so we talked about the economics. Now we're getting into the psychology of feeling completely safe while flying.
Exactly. Imagine if we could really convince our brains that flying is as safe as walking down the street. How would that change our travel habits, our anxieties, even how we see risk in general?
That's a fascinating question. Some people might, as we said before, embrace air travel without a second thought, feeling this sense of liberation from fear.
Yeah.
While others, maybe those with anxieties or bad experiences in the past, might still struggle with that, even with all the evidence showing how safe it is.
Yeah.
It really shows you the power of the mind and how our experiences shake us, even when faced with statistics.
It does.
So this shift in air travel safety could have this ripple effect impacting not just travel choices, but maybe even our attitudes towards risk in general. Would it make us more or less risk averse in other areas of life? It's hard to say.
It is. That's what makes all of this so interesting. It's not just the technology, but the potential changes in society that might come along with such a huge change in how we see air travel.
It's like opening this door to a whole new world of possibilities and questions. And as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? If near zero risk in air travel does happen, will it change our relationship with the sky? Will we view it as this realm of endless possibilities, free from the anxieties that we've always associated with flying?
That's a really deep question, and I think it deserves more thought. Perhaps achieving that level of safety could lead to a greater appreciation for the uncertainty in life.
Right.
Maybe it would encourage us to take more calculated risks in other areas, knowing that we've conquered this fear of flying.
Or maybe even with all the advancements, we'll always have this sense of awe and respect for nature, knowing that while we've come so far in mastering flight, there's still that element of wonder and unpredictability.
That's a beautiful thought. And it speaks to the power of the human spirit, our curiosity and desire to explore and our ability to innovate, but also be humble in the face of the unknown.
Yeah, it is a fascinating thing to think about, isn't it? Like this idea that near zero risk in air travel could actually change how we see risk in other parts of our lives.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about the bigger picture, almost like philosophically.
Yeah, I totally agree. It really raises these questions about how we define risk as humans, and how we relate to it. If we can just eliminate it in one area, does that make us more confident to take risks in other areas? Or does it make us want more safety everywhere? Could it lead to us being more afraid of risk in other parts of life?
It's almost like a paradox. We conquer this huge fear of flying, but maybe it just makes us more aware of all the uncertainty and risk that's in every part of life.
That's a really good point. And it speaks to how complicated human psychology is. We're always trying to understand the world around us, assess the risks, and then make decisions. But we never have all the information. So this potential for ultra-safe air travel really throws a wrench into things.
This deep dive has taken us on quite a journey. We started with the physics of making air travel safer. We looked at all these amazing technologies that are coming up. Then we got into the economics and even the psychology of this idea of almost zero risk.
And throughout all of this, we've seen how human ingenuity and this drive to progress can lead to some remarkable things. It's amazing how we push boundaries and challenge things we once thought were impossible.
It's pretty inspiring. So to everyone listening out there, we'll leave you with this. As we're maybe about to turn air travel into one of the safest ways to get around, what will this mean for you?
Will it change how you travel, how you see the world, even your own relationship with risk? We really hope you keep thinking about these questions. Keep looking into the things we've talked about, and maybe even challenge some of your own ideas about what the future of air travel could be.
Because when it comes to air travel safety, we've learned that the sky's not the limit. It's just the start of a whole new world of possibilities. Thanks for joining us.